It's 10 a.m. Good morning. How are you doing so far? Are you having a beautiful morning, a beautiful day, as beautiful as you are? Remember, this is our talk hour, and I'll be expecting you to join in today's discussion. We'll be talking about the challenges that refugees go through, the different camping for refugees like Kakuma, Dadaab, the measures set aside, like regulations that the government has put in place to ensure that the refugees are safe. We'll also analyze what the Constitution says about refugees and immigrants. And remember, you can join in today's discussion through our WhatsApp line 0799387613.
This is Haki FM, Oasis of Justice.
My name is Judy Moraah. It's now 8 minutes past 10 a.m. Good morning, and I hope you're enjoying your day. It's still the month of love, right? And it's February 18th, 2022. So continue spreading love, continue spreading the positivity. And today I'm not alone in studio. With me in studio are members from the Relon-Kenya, and I'll let them introduce themselves because I don't believe I'm going to do them justice if I introduce them. So welcome to studio and welcome to Haki FM.
Thank you, Linda. My name is Jean-Paul Kasika. I'm the coordinator for Relon-Kenya. Relon-Kenya is a refugee-led organization, network of Kenya, that is there to unite all the refugee-led organization or refugee-led initiatives, brings them together for the common purpose, advocating for the interest of our people.
Thank you so much for coming to Haki FM. We'll discuss more as we progress in the show. And my friend, James.
My name is James Yieng. Mm-hmm. I'm a member of Relon-Kenya.
Thank you so much. So I believe because Relon, you said it deals, it's like a civil society, but it deals with refugees. And, Kenya, like I was reading the statistics of the UNHCR, and they said as of last year, December, it recorded that Kenya hosts 540,000 refugees, and 77% of them are women and children. And I believe this number is quite overwhelming. And even they even found out that they have over 18,000 stateless people. And I told my listeners about this. So if you can just brief us about who is a stateless person? Is it the same? Is a stateless person the same as a refugee, or they're two different entities?
Yeah, thank you so much, Linda. I think
Judy.
Oh, Judy.
Yeah.
Sorry, rather. Don't sue me for that.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. So I believe, as you are told, it's correct by the UNHCR, since the one who are manning the data of refugees, and also together with RAS, which is the Refugee Affairs Secretariat. It's a department within the Interior Ministry, which they are also managing the refugee affairs. So I believe the numbers are quite correct, and it would be plus the number you said. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to stateless person, is someone whom no country does not seem to recognize him. So someone fled the country of origin, perhaps, that he believes, but in that particular country is not neither recognized either a citizen, and even in the asylum country is not being recognized. And a refugee is someone with a status already. Mm-hmm. So is someone with a nationality, belongs to a certain country. So fled his country of origin to another country. So which means he has crossed the international borders for various reasons, owing to maybe the persecution or security issues. It could be on political, depending on the reason that maybe one might have fled the country of origin. And whereby many people usually confuse between a refugee and an IDP.
Yeah.
An IDP is someone who've just run away from one place to the other, but within the borders of that particular country.
Thank you so much. So what could be the underlying issue, or what happens so that a person can be known as a stateless? Is it because they were not registered at birth in their country, or is it because they were not registered as refugees in their asylum state?
Thank you so much. When someone is known as a stateless person, there's so many facts. It could be that maybe that particular individual was not captured in the database from the country where he claimed to belong to, whereby we have seen this issue of stateless people, especially maybe a certain community moved from one particular place to another country, and yet they have been in that country for many years and are not recognized the way we've seen here, like the Amakondes. They came to this country more than 100 years, but they were just recognized so recently.
Yeah.
So at that time, many people would call them stateless because they had no any formal of documentation to say that they are Kenyans or they are from where they are believed to have come from. So it could be also maybe a child was born but does not know the parents, and no one is there maybe to come forth and take care of this kid. So you just grow in that way, and nobody's there like to give like an accommodation so that he can say, I'm the caregiver, and he can also process your document, because we understand in every country has their own procedures of acquiring the citizenship. And again, as we know in Kenya and many other countries where it says birth certificate is not sufficient or is not a proof of citizenship.
Yeah.
Those could be one of the factors.
Thank you so much for answering that. And I'd like to ask a question so that I can incorporate James, because he is an immigrant, right, from the Southern Sudan. So when you talk about the immigrants, are they an equivalent to refugees, or what happens? Like, what's the difference between now the immigrant and the refugees? Because at times, I believe they just come for a period of time, then maybe they lose their contacts or just something, or maybe things get rough. So then they just find themselves as part and parcel as Kenyans. So will you consider them as immigrants, or will you consider them as refugees at that particular point?
Yeah, well, for immigrants are not equivalent to refugees. Refugees, as I said earlier, are people who fled their country of origin to another international border to seek for asylum, to seek for their safety and protection. Simply, they are fleeing from maybe conflict and to another country to seek for asylum. Those are until he or she is recognized, because there is a process called RSD, which is the refugee status determination. So it should take actually around 90 days period in order to be recognized as a refugee. But we understand sometimes it takes longer than it should be. But for an immigrant, could be someone coming to look for greener pasture in another country. So that is not... We have many categories among the immigrants. We have economic migrants and so forth. So they are not refugees as per se.
Okay, thank you. It's because you find that most of them, like you said, they came to look for maybe seek employment opportunities, but things didn't work out like the way they expected. So at this time, they'll feel more safe because they know, okay, in Kenya there's a certain refugee camp, and I'm sure my people could be there. My people from my country they came here to seek refuge. So most of these immigrants too, like according to an article I read, they also go to those camps. So, and that is why I wanted you to clarify the difference, because when they go to those camps, they will identify themselves as refugees and wapewe the necessary help.
Yeah. I quite believe, but that one I'll leave to the relevant institutions such as UNHCR and RAS to answer on that, because I believe migrant cannot be hosted in a refugee camp. That is already said a refugee camp.
Yeah. And
the name itself, which means you have to be assessed. Unless you declare interest, something comes up that you are no longer a migrant, you want to become a refugee. That one, the relevant
also there's a possibility you can declare that.
It could be. Okay. Situation might change. Yeah. Let's say you came as an immigrant, and in your country of origin there is peace. Today, war erupts in that country. Who do you refer yourself as? Definitely, you'll have to refer yourself as a refugee. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
What I can add on what Jen Fall said, in terms of those migrants, they are here for business. The government of Kenya knows them. But if there is any problem occur, it is the government will give them a direction. Because now I have a problem, I will go to police, express myself. I have this. Then the policeman will listen to me. He will refer me where I can get help. But for them, as refugees, like he was explaining to you, it is different, like he said. But if you have a problem, you surrender to police, then the police will direct you to where you can get help. Yes.
Thank you so much. I wanted us to just, for our listener, so we can clarify the difference between a stateless person, a refugee, and an immigrant before you can tell us as an organization what you do, so that they can be able to understand. So you can just briefly tell us like the initiatives of your organization, how you're working with refugees, and the achievements, these things that could be more interesting, so that we can have an idea about these people that have come to Kenya to seek refuge.
In terms, maybe you might clarify more so that our listeners can get to understand a bit.
Okay, I'd like, when you hear about refugees, they came to seek refuge. So at times, the people will think that these people do not have equivalent rights as the people of this nation. So, and the rights could be the rights to education, rights to protection, like security. So an example will be in the Kakuma camp or the Dadaab camp. So is there any security, like personnel there to watch over these refugees? And if there is it themselves that watch, like wamelipwa they've been given the employment opportunities as security officers, or are there law enforcers like the Kenya police there? And then in terms of education, like, are all these children, are they able to access education?
Yeah, thank you so much. If I may start with the security apparatus, I think security is of paramount to the nation. And I believe security, no refugee comes with their security. Or even in the country of asylum or in the camps, refugees are not like guarding themselves. So refugees are guarded by the same security that exist, so they enjoy the same benefit as Kenyans. So it is the same Kenyan police and Kenyan security apparatus that provide security to both refugees and locals. And first and foremost, I would like to appreciate the government of Kenya for hosting us for very many years that we've been here in Kenya, and very many decades. And it's not that we take it for granted, but sometimes circumstances forces people to do what they are not supposed to do. And when you talk of education, yes, we understand it is a fundamental right for every child to get education. But unfortunately, some of the refugees cannot access good education. Why do I say good education? Some of them, how do you go to school when you don't have money? How do you go to school when you're hungry? So, like, whatever they get in the refugee camp in terms of food is not sufficient that we can say as a human being can depend on that. Refugees are people like any other person. So that one, many people do not understand that refugees also have something to contribute. They have great potentials that Kenya can tap into and also benefit. But because of some issues that are there or barriers, that's why they cannot access quality education. When we mean quality education, it's quality education that any other child should access. And whereby you find, because of some psychological problems, some of them could not go to school because of what they had seen from their country of origin. Some of them have not healed from the trauma. And it could be maybe finances that stops them from accessing quality education. That's why they just go to these schools simply because they want to be in school. But they need also to access quality education. And sometimes they drop out because of trauma that comes with it, discrimination that is there. But we are encouraging, not every Kenyan is bad. In every society, there is always a mad person. There's good people and bad people. Even in the society that we comes from, we can't say we are 100% perfect. So there must be always some people that are not good, even bad element among ourselves. Same as to Kenyans. So we should not blame anybody, or do not think refugees are here to take away opportunities from you.
Yeah, and I believe that those are some of the stereotypes that these refugees undergo. And some are, there are people that will see them as aliens, just as the term it is. It's like they came to take the opportunities. Some of them are even accused of being terrorists. Some are accused of theft. So I believe that's where your organization will come in, maybe to offer maybe civic education to the refugees, because I believe they're in a place where if no person looks at their issues apart from resources, distribution of resources, they could be undergoing a lot of psychological torture. So maybe you can tell us briefly, like, if there's any initiative that your organization has put in place to ensure that these people receive mentorship, they are taken through various trainings on how to relate even with Kenyans.
Yeah, thank you very much. If I may start with the last one, as well as Kenyans also needs to be educated on some of these matters so that they can get to understand who are our refugees. So nobody knows yourself better than you do. And the reason why we say nothing for refugees without refugees, because we believe refugees knows themselves better than anyone does. Because today you will not tell me that this is something that I want to do for you without having me involved in. So you never heard from me from the word go. First and foremost, you need to engage the refugees. Get to understand what are their needs. Then you can go ahead and maybe develop, if it's a program that you want to bring for refugees, which we don't think if it's a bad thing. And we do encourage as an umbrella body, not only in Kenya, even worldwide, that refugees should be involved in every decision-making table and also policy dialogues on matters affecting their day-to-day lives. Because we believe even in Kenyan society, whenever a certain legislation before it's introduced to the parliament, they usually have some consultative meetings with the community members in order to take them through a certain legislative or any change in policies. They have to get to understand there's that community participation. But we find at times refugees are not involved. You just caught by surprise that there's this law that has been passed. There's this ABC that has been passed. Having said that, refugees are part of the community that you live in. And if we don't also get to involve them, how will you say they just did what they did, but they know what the law says? Ignorance is not, as you usually say, it's not a defense of the law. So if someone is not aware, get to make them understand what does the law says, what is this. If you make them learn, it will be very difficult for them to go against what they know. So I think it could be perhaps for the lack of knowledge that they do some things that they do. And we also appreciate the fact that some of the civil society organizations in Kenya, they are doing quite a good job, including Kituo cha Sheria, RCK, and UNHCR. At times they do conduct some sensitization forums to educate refugees on their rights and obligations, so whereby they need to understand. And despite that, they quite face a lot of challenges. So we are calling upon our Kenyan brothers and sisters, especially during this period of elections, they need to take it easy. they need to tolerate each other, because all of us, we are brothers and sisters. We are all Africans. Today we have seen so many other African countries who are your neighboring countries coming to the East African board.
Yeah.
So how do you segregate them and yet you will become one? You need to have that easy movement, that access to mobility, whereby one can move from one country to the other very easily. So there are some of the basic things that people need to understand of who are refugees. Why are they in Kenya? It's not that they are here just to take away opportunities from you, or they are here just to eat your resources. Which resources that they are eating from? They also work like any other individuals. So we have intellect, mind people among ourselves. So there's a lot that you benefit from refugees without knowing. But many a times you'd hear some people complaining refugees are not good, they are bad elements, they are a threat to our security. So which I usually question myself, if they are threat to security, why don't you bring them to book like any other individual? Because the constitution is very clear. Anybody who commits crime should be charged in accordance with the Kenyan laws. And yet, being in the land of Kenya, then definitely you must comply with the Kenyan laws. So I don't think if it is a good thing to label some people. If something has done something, then the whole community is labeled on that. So I don't believe if there is a bad element among our community, we don't say
like the way you said, where there is bad, there is good. And we cannot have a community where everyone does good. So, but exactly. Unfortunately for refugees, when one does wrong, all refugees are stereotyped that these people are a threat. But
they should be brought to book. Yeah. That is what we are asking. Even the last time there was a challenge when there was an encampment policy during the Usalama Watch. Mm-hmm. People moved to court and said, unless you produce enough evidence to say so and so have been caught doing this. But nothing has ever come to the attention of the media and even in court. That's why the case was dismissed. Yeah. But we don't say there is no bad element. If there is bad element, yes, they are there. But how do you get rid of them? Take them to the book. So it is good you discipline them like the way you discipline any other Kenyan who commit crimes. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Judith. What I can add on that, you see the issue of harassment to the police. Yeah. But for all refugees, some of them have lack of understanding. Because now, for example, if I've been arrested by the police, in the law, Article 51 or 50 or 49, it gives you the answer. If you have been arrested, there is a rule you follow to keep silent, or you can speak, you can express yourself, or the police will tell you, you have been arrested with this one, reason and this. Now you'll understand. Because now if they identify you fear, there is some guide, not everyone. Then they say, kuna kitu kidogo. I think. Yeah. Now because that person you have a fear. For example, if there is a issue of insecurity, now they say, people say Al-Shabaab, what? Now the whole high will be refugees. Now they will look at refugees are criminal, which is not true. For example, now if I live in Kikuyu, because now I live in Kikuyu, if I have a problem, I will go to police or to my area chief. I will address my concern. Then the authority will take the action, because in the law, Bill of Chapter 4, Bill of Rights, we are all equal. Yeah. Refugees, they have potential. But the problem is we don't get the opportunity in Kenya to work, whether we can get a job. But we are educated. But the problem is the system. Are you seeing now? Yeah. To get there where I can get a job, even if I work in a supermarket or in a hotel, as long as I give my alien card, it is identify me, then I can get hell.
Yeah.
Because now we are not benefiting too much in UNHCR. Only few people get resettled, not everyone. Because in perception of refugees, they think the aim is to go to USA or Canada or Australia, but not everyone is going. But it depends with the case, with the individual. They see your case. Even if you came in 1999, you are still here in Kenya. But you have many years. Why cannot the government could not give them an opportunity to get a job? Some of them married with a Kenyan, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
It is their right, because if you love a person,
Yeah.
it is your choice, because you love that person. Doesn't matter the where he came from, but you like it. But the most of thing is, let the government give us opportunity, if possible, because we are the people, we are all African, like J. Paul said, yes, so that we can have a good common goal to share things together. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. You've mentioned about the alien card,
Yes.
and that is the identification document
Yes.
of the refugees. Just like the Kenyan citizens, the identification document is the ID.
Yes.
So I will now take it back to John Paul, because there's something he said about we are in the election period.
Yes.
So with this alien card, can refugees be allowed to vote?
Very good question, Judy. I think refugees, and in this context, that we need to make it so clear that refugees are not supposed to be involved in any political movement or political activity in a country of asylum. That is number one. And refugees should be given opportunity to showcase and give what they have. So it is an opportunity that Kenyans would benefit a lot from refugees. They have different things that they can give to Kenyans. And coming back to the alien, refugees are not allowed to vote.
Okay.
And they are not supposed to get involved in any political activities. So they are not. And it's a confusion that during the many elections that we've been in Kenya, some of the Kenyans, for the lack of knowledge, they confuse and thinking that maybe refugees also participate in the elections. They are not supposed to participate in the election. That documentation just allows them to be in Kenya, recognize them as who they are, and just to access maybe some job opportunities, but again, they are not getting that job. They are not accessing the decent job. The only job are given, it's the incentive works, so which they are just paid peanut. And frankly speaking, we have to say the truth. And we believe maybe as we keep going with the new legislation, or rather the current act, the 2021 act that was enacted so recently by His Excellency the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, which we really, really appreciate for his leadership and for having signed the bill into law. And I think with the new law, the Refugee Act, I think maybe will open a chance for refugees also to compete for these other opportunities like any other person in the country.
Yeah, though in our discussion, you also mentioned that actually before we start about talking about the government, this act, I think citizens, the Kenyan citizens themselves, should be sensitized on refugees, their purpose, the things they can contribute into our nation, because it starts with us as citizens. So that before even we can get a government job for a refugee, then even these private corporations can be able to employ these refugees based on, at least they have this alien card they can identify themselves with. Yeah. So also a question, because I had James saying he lives in Kikuyu. Maybe this will also break the stereotyping that all refugees are supposed to be living in camps. So you can be a refugee and still find yourself a residential area away from the camps.
Yeah, if I may come in, I think, yes, you can, because there's urban refugee program. And not all refugees are in the camp. And there is some exemptions. And you are not just supposed to come and find yourself a place in Nairobi. You must have some good reasons as to why you want to remain in Nairobi or you want to remain in the urban centers, and as to why you cannot live in the camp. And that one, it's upon the Refugee Affairs Secretariat, which is the RAS, that have the primary mandate of protecting the refugees and assessing the refugees. As per the law, yes, there is a specific place set up for the refugee, but not all refugees can be put in the same basket.
Yeah.
Because we have people with high profile security. How do you get them live in the same place with maybe the people they are fleeing from? So it depends also based on security and medical education, that if you follow under those criteria that I've stated and many other, I think RAS would give you an exemption to live in Nairobi.
Okay.
Or live in urban centers.
Okay, thank you. Also talking about the employment opportunities, are refugees are allowed to create their own jobs, like maybe start business? Are they given permits? Because this also could be a way to counter them not being employed. So if they can be allowed to start businesses, then employ one another.
Yes, they do. We have very many refugees who are in business sector today, like creating their own employment.
Yeah.
We have many refugees who are self-employed, and to an extent that they have even employed Kenyans. And you can imagine, by denying them right or denying them access to some of the government services, the Kenyan government is losing a lot, because you would have benefited from these refugees to grow the economy of this country. Why am I saying that? Because if you don't give them KRA, simply because maybe their refugee ID cards are not integrated into the Kenyan database system, whereby a refugee could easily just go online like any other Kenyan and access the KRA PIN, which you'll be able to follow and monitor how is this refugee doing in his business. But by not doing so, they are also losing a lot, because if I don't declare my wealth, how will you know? Yeah. Until the moment I declare, every transaction will be able to follow and maybe get what you're supposed to get. If you allow them to pay tax and work like any other person to compete for these jobs, then definitely they have that capacity and ability to do that, because we have very many intellect refugees who are just there dormant. And surprisingly, there's 2 doctors that I know which they've been working in some of the big hospitals, but you are denied or you are not given the permit to work. If permits were issued freely or easily, because yes, they're supposed to be free, the class M permit, which is the supposed to be the work permit, but the process and the bureaucracy need before you get that document, I'm telling you, it's something that could have been made very easy, and people would have contributed to the economy of this country like you could never imagine. If you look today, the business community in Isli, the businesses are booming. And can you imagine how much money are they making or contributing to the economy of this city or in this country? So if you would have allowed every refugee who have the ability or is passionate to do maybe business or something else, allow them to work, and they contribute to the economy of this country. They pay tax like any other individuals.
And I absolutely agree on you there, because remember, you defined who a refugee is. You say this person, it's like they are running from their country because of conflict, because of war, violence, and all these things. It doesn't mean before they decided to seek refuge, they were not working. So could be these were even great businessmen. They ran, and maybe they even have money still in their accounts. An example will be maybe a refugee from South Sudan, and remember their currency is dollars. So it's also acceptable here in Kenya. So if they're given the necessary permits, then I believe they can be in a position to start a business, and even at least like the way you said, you know of people that have refugees that have even employed Kenyans. So if they can be given these permits at ease, just like every other Kenyans, they can also help us solve the problem of unemployment. Yeah. So thank you. I remember, if you have any question, our WhatsApp line is 0799387613. Tell us what you want to know about refugees. If this conversational is as enlightening like the way I'm enlightening, I have been empowered. I have learned so much. I hope you're learning the same too. You can find us also on our social media platforms, Haki FM1, that is Twitter, Instagram, Haki FM1, then Facebook is Haki FM1. Then please like our Facebook fan page, that is Haki FM fan page.
Hii ni Haki FM, Oasis of Justice.
Good morning, and with me in studio are extremely this guest. I don't know how to define you, because you have really empowered me in relation to refugees, immigrants, the things that they are undergoing through, and I hope my listener, that is the same as for you. That is what you're learning, and thank you so much for tuning in to Haki FM, Oasis of Justice. So Jean Paul and James, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank
you. And as we were talking off air, I got a question, and I was asking, so you remember you told me that refugees, they can still come and work in the urban centers, and there are some that are in the camps. So if you're found without an alien card, even Kenyans at times we walk without our ID cards. So if you came to Nairobi, being the capital center, maybe to look for an opportunity, and maybe in the process, because you know these petty thieves, pickpocketers, someone robbed you, and then now you've lost your card. So in this case, if you come up with the law enforcers like the Kenya police, so how is your case handled? Are they going to take you back to the camp where you came from, or how do they go about it?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a very good question, and I think for many of our refugee community members does not know the procedure. So first and foremost, you follow the procedure like any other Kenyan, the way they do when you lose your identity card or any other document. You have to report to the nearest police station within a reasonable period, which is within the 24 hours. The matter has to be reported at any nearest police station, or if there is no any nearest police post or a police station, then definitely any administrative offices. You have to report your matter so that you can be issued with an OB, so that to prove that you've lost something, and also issued with the abstract saying that you have lost your ID, so that within 7 days you should have presented that to the institution that deals with the registration of refugees, which is RAS. You go to any of their offices. They are based in General Madenge. That's where their offices are for registration center, or you can even approach them here in Upper Hill. So where they're just around, you can approach them to inform them. Now they will have to process for your new ID card, or if you still had the asylum seeker papers. So still the same process, you have to report. And when you come across the law enforcers, you don't need to fear, because you're not a criminal. For me, I usually say, why should I fear? They are human beings like me.
Yeah.
So I'll just explain to them, I've just been robbed and lost some of my documents, including the ID. So I'm on my way to report, or I'm planning to report. I'm doing ABCD. But there are those who understand, and some who does not understand, who want to take advantage of you, whether you have an ID or not. So it happens that you are extorted, and most of the security apparatus usually take advantage of the refugee situation for those who does not understand the law. Now extort them extremely. So they'll just tell you this is not an ID, or they just ask you for the ID and keep it. So maybe one of them will disappear in the middle, and when you arrive at the police station, they say, "We have not seen his ID. He does not have any." And you know, before any law enforcer, you cannot speak against them. So always whatever the law enforcers will say or present in the papers definitely are going to be considered than what you'll say.
Yeah, and you said about law enforcers harassing them because they don't know the law. So what about who is responsible to ensuring that these refugees understand the Kenyan law? Is it the civil society organizations, or is it the government, or now is it RAS?
That one I cannot say. It's a specific mandate of a certain institution to maybe educate them on their rights and obligations.
Yeah.
I think it is a collective responsibility that each and every person that is aware or knows the law that protects the refugees and the people of Kenya then should definitely inform them to conduct some civic education, sensitization forum. We believe at times RAS would do it, at times UNHCR would do it, at times the legal entities such as Kituo cha Sheria, they usually have some legal aid program to go within the communities, inform them about their rights and obligations. But we also have RCK and many other civil society organizations, but they don't have enough maybe means to reach to all refugees that are either in urban or in the camp. So it also requires some means. So.
Yeah, and also from the statistics given by the UNHCR about the numbers of refugees, they said 77% are women and children, meaning the rate of procreation is on a high. So are there like medical services or facilities that they can access easily? Another thing, do these refugees have insurance cover, or it's a different matter totally?
Yeah, very good question. I think when it comes to services, access to service, that's why we keep on saying that refugees should also be treated like any other human being, any other Kenyan, that accessing the medical care, it is one of their fundamental right to any human being. But at times they access, and it gets to a point whereby you cannot get further medical assistance simply because you don't have money, or you don't have the right documentation to some institution. I don't know if it's negligence or what. They do not want to recognize the document that you have, be it, let's say, maybe a mandate. Some of them who are used to mandate at that time, they will ask you produce a mandate. Some of them who are used to alien card, because refugees were given several documents that each today you will tell they have maybe different type of document, including the proof of registration, refugee certificate, alien card. Then now we have the refugee ID card. So it brings also a lot of confusion, whereby they need to come up with one document that will be familiar, and maybe the stakeholders also to be sensitized on the types of document. I know it has happened in the previous, but now things keeps on changing. Now we are moving from analog to digital, whereby sometimes this ID card are not integrated into the Kenyan database, whereby it becomes a bit hard for some of the refugees to access some of the services which are very crucial and essential to them, including when you talk of the medical shame, is it NHIF?
Yeah,
so it becomes a bit hard. There are some who've been provided some medical cover through the NHIF system by UNHCR, and others who do not have, what do they do? There's a few percentage who have access to NHIF card, paying on their own, and very many of them who do not have and who do not even know what an NHIF is. So it becomes a little bit tricky. So in the camp, yes, they have some medical facility, but we believe, yes, it is not sufficient. That they need also to go maybe for further checkups, further medical attention, but accessibility. That's when we say, when it comes to access of free movement, there is no that access of free movement. It is a process before you are given maybe a movement pass for you to leave the camp to Nairobi. You must have a good reason. Maybe if it's on medical, you approach the RAS offices in the camp with a medical proof or a letter from the doctor confirming that you are going to Nairobi for medical process, so that they can also process. Yeah.
Now that we're talking about accessibility, and we are a legal institution too, so how sufficient or how easy can the refugees access justice? Because I also believe they have also been affected by the COVID-19, just like every other Kenyans. And you realize when there was curfews and cessation to movement, most people were supposed to stay at home, and cases of gender-based violence, they became so many, rape and all these forms of abuse. So did some of the refugees undergo this? And if they did, how quick were they able to access justice and report such cases?
Well, it depends with the locations where these refugees are, especially those in urban. Many of them, they faced these challenges, but they were nowhere to report, because where they know they could get justice, maybe through some of the legal institutes that they work in collaboration with the UNHCR or the legal partner, such as RCK and Kituo cha Sheria. But some of those institutions were closed. Many of the services offered to refugees by these NGOs, they had closed their doors during the COVID period. So it was only left to some of the RLOs, which we refer to as the refugee-led initiatives, that were cushioning their own people, addressing some of these issues through maybe the local authorities. But again, as we say, refugees, we might be called vulnerables, but we are not vulnerables. It is the situation that we live in that makes us look vulnerable. So therefore, sometimes you might report a case to the police, but because of your status, it is not given that much weight, and becomes a little bit difficult. And you know, we are in Kenya and we understand you have sometimes to be asked to pay kidogo. Sometimes you might get, not everyone is bad. We have very good police officers who will even lead you to access justice. So it is there. It is a 50-50. Yeah.
Yeah, and as we wind up, because I'm saying we are a minute past time, but it's still okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, when we started, we talked about the stateless people. So are they given the same identification card as similar to the refugees, or what happens to them? Because there are quite a number in Kenya too.
Yeah, as I said much earlier, yes, they are considered also as part of the refugees, because refugee is not a nationality.
Yeah,
refugee is just a status, and on the card it is written your nationality. Even on the travel document it is written your nationality, not as a refugee. Refugee is just a temporary status.
Okay.
But you have a nationality, you belong to a certain country. And for those whom becomes difficult for them to identify themselves as people from a particular nation, that's where UNHCR and other civil society should come in. But they are also given identification by the UNHCR and RAS. Do not discriminate them, RAS. They give them documentation. But it becomes a little bit difficult for them to be referred as people of this country. So that's the challenge between the other refugees and the stateless people. Yeah.
Okay, so any parting shots?
Yieng, go ahead.
It is the same as he explained it,
Okay.
because it is just a name, but that person does not know his father or mother. Only that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
But he don't know where to go. Yes.
Thank you. Jean Paul?
Yeah, people are living in a state of limbo and should be allowed to freely move within the country and also in the region, so that, because free mobility opens up a lot, including livelihood of refugees, including job opportunity or decent job opportunities, can also open an opportunity for good education to refugees. Let's say, for instance, you get an opportunity, you have the ability and you have maybe the capacity to work perhaps in Uganda or do the business. Refugees can also trade. They would like also to travel and get the goods from outside and sell to Kenyans. So they should be allowed that free mobility, be it in the camp, provided you have that identification document that identifies you. You should not be restricted to a certain particular place. Rather, you should be allowed to move, and there should be no fear when it comes to, we know, yes, security is of paramount to the nation, but they are monitored the way Kenyans also are monitored. If someone has committed any crime, should be subjected to the law like any other individuals, as per the law says. So I think it would be a good opportunity to see Kenya opening up for refugees, because they've been very receptive for all these years. Then what has it made them difficult to allow refugees to work, allow refugees to access good education? Today, if you go, surprisingly, you go into higher learnings, refugees are paying higher fee than the locals. Why? Because they are also categorized under the foreign policy. The way foreigners pay, that's how the refugees will also pay.
Yes.
So, which should not be. And refugees are part of the resident.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they are here not by mistake. They are here for a purpose. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I thank you. This discussion has been very enlightening, very informative, and I will be definitely welcoming you back here so we can learn more, because this is a public platform where people get to be sensitized. So I know 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 10, if they have gotten the information about the refugees, then they can share, and that is how we do, like, it's just like a civic education. Now, I'm sure the general public is a bit sensitized, and you have to come back more and more until we get to a place that we learn to live with the refugees as Kenyans, because they are part of us and we should accept them as human beings, and their rights also should be upheld. Thank you so much. And remember, Salama Bakita and me will be joining you in the evening from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So continue streaming hakifm.or.ke. My visitors were from Relon-Kenya. So if you want to know more about them, you can check their website. But they are here. They can give us their contacts. Yeah. So Jean Paul, tell us where we can find you other than Relon-Kenya. Maybe your contacts, your networking sites. Yeah.
Yeah. So for our contact, you can easily get us. We are www.relon-kenya.or.ke.
Okay.
You will find us at Relon-Kenya on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay.
You will still find us. And
Thank
we
you
are based
so
in
much.
Nasra Garden Estate. Check on our website. You will get to learn more about what we do. And we also encourage that let us come together and take this country to another place. We are also part of you. So let us also celebrate the peace that has been in Kenya. And we really appreciate for the government of Kenya to have hosted us for all these years and continue to host us. Do not get tired. We are part of you, and we are one people So we urge the Kenyan people to embrace peace during this election period. Let us not be too ambitious when it comes to politics. Please be tolerant to one another.
Thank you, Judy. I really appreciate the way you have been hosted us. My message goes to all refugees who are living in Kenya. If you have a problem, don't fear. Just express yourself where you are, report it to the police, or report it to Kituo cha Sheria or UNHCR hotline. It is 1517 hotline. You call it without paying anything.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that information. And we appreciate you so much. And we are also acknowledging you as part of us, and we are part of you. And we welcome you back here. For our listener, you have heard the hotline for UNHCR. You have heard where you can find the Relon-Kenya. So for more information about our discussion, iyo yote iko on that website. And it's quite informative, quite engaging. Thank you so much.
This is Haki FM, Oasis of Justice.